She was forced to marry her sister's millionaire fiancé in a coma, but when he woke up, he knew her secret. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support truly means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let us return to our main character. The rain outside the hospital window fell in thin, silver lines, tracing the glass like tears that refused to end. The fluorescent lights hummed faintly as Lila Grant stood motionless in front of the bed. The man lying there, Ethan Ward, looked peaceful, almost unreal, as if he were only sleeping. Machines blinked steadily beside him, their quiet beeps marking a life that hovered somewhere between this world and the next. Lila's hands trembled around the folded contract her mother had pushed toward her only an hour ago. The words still echoed in her ears. "Sign it, Lila. You will save our home. Your sister's engagement to the Ward family cannot collapse now, not with all that money at stake." Her mother's tone had been cold, almost businesslike. To her, it was not about love or morality. It was about survival. Ethan Ward, the heir to Ward Enterprises, had been in a coma for 2 months after the car accident that had also injured Lila's sister, Celeste. Celeste had disappeared shortly after the crash, leaving the family name in ruin and the press circling like vultures. The Wards demanded an answer. The wedding had been scheduled. It had to happen. So now, under the bright sterile lights of the hospital room, Lila stood in her sister's place. Her white dress, borrowed and wrinkled from days of storage, clung damply to her skin. Her reflection in the window looked like a ghost, one trapped in someone else's story. Mr. Hale, Ethan's personal attorney, cleared his throat. His gray suit was pressed, his tone sharp. "Miss Grant," he said evenly, "as per the Ward family's request, this union will be recognized legally once you sign. When Mr. Ward recovers, the marriage will be revisited. Until then, you are to maintain his name and protect his reputation. Do you understand?" Lila nodded silently, though her chest felt tight. She glanced down at the paper again. Clause after clause, cold and impersonal. No emotional involvement, no media interviews, no claim to inheritance. Just a temporary arrangement, a contract disguised as a vow. Her voice came out in a whisper. "And if he never wakes up?" Mr. Hale's gaze flickered. "Then you remain Mrs. Ward, until further notice." Lila looked once more at the man on the bed. His chest rose and fell with the rhythm of the ventilator, each breath mechanical and distant. She remembered his face from photographs, the smile, the eyes that once looked full of life. Now, there was only silence. "I am sorry," she murmured softly, more to herself than anyone else. Then she picked up the pen. The first stroke of her signature felt like a betrayal. The second, like surrender. When it was done, the room seemed colder. "Mr. Hale gathered the documents and said, "Congratulations, Mrs. Ward. The ceremony will be private. The press will receive a statement tomorrow morning." Lila's knees weakened. "A ceremony?" He nodded. "It is expected. The Ward family wants no suspicion. There will be photos. You will wear the dress your sister selected." That night, the hospital chapel was nearly empty. Only the low hum of the air vents filled the silence. A single candle flickered beside the altar. Lila stood across from Ethan's hospital bed, his body wheeled in for the occasion. His eyes were closed, a faint shadow of life beneath his pale skin. The priest's words sounded distant, like echoes in a tunnel. "Do you, Lila Grant, take Ethan Ward to be your lawful husband, to honor and protect him in sickness and in health?" Her lips trembled. "I do." The cameras clicked. A flash of white light captured her hollow smile, her veil trembling from the draft. Outside, thunder rolled through the night. As the ceremony ended, she reached down, almost instinctively, and adjusted the thin silver necklace at her throat, the one she had worn since college. The tiny charm caught the candlelight and reflected against Ethan's still hand. For a fleeting second, she thought she saw his finger twitch. Her heart skipped. She blinked. The motion was gone. A nurse moved forward to roll the bed back to the private suite. Lila followed quietly, her heels echoing on the tiled floor. When they reached the room, she lingered at the doorway, unable to leave. The machines continued their endless beeping, steady and cold. She stood there, whispering into the hum of the machines. "You do not know me, Ethan Ward. But from tonight on, I am your wife." The monitor beeped once, sharply, as if answering her. And though she told herself it was only coincidence, a strange chill crept up her spine because deep down, she could have sworn she saw the faintest movement beneath his closed eyelids. The next morning, sunlight filtered weakly through the blinds of the Ward family mansion. The rain had stopped, but the air still smelled of metal and wet earth. Lila stood in the grand foyer, dwarfed by marble floors and chandeliers that sparkled like frozen rain. The house felt nothing like a home. It was a monument to silence and money. A row of framed portraits lined the hallway, generations of Wardmen, staring down in perfect suits. She felt their judgment as she passed, clutching the small silver necklace around her throat. The one thing in this place that was truly hers. Mr. Hale waited by the staircase, holding a thin folder. His tone was brisk, professional. "Mrs. Ward, the family would like to express their gratitude for your cooperation. However, there are conditions that you must continue to respect." He opened the folder and read aloud. 1. You will remain in residence until further notice. 2. You will not speak to the press. 3. You will attend upcoming charity functions to maintain appearances. 4. You will not interfere with Mr. Ward's medical care. Lila nodded, though her stomach knotted tighter with every word. "And if I need to leave?" she asked quietly. "Then you must submit a written request to the family attorney." His gaze lifted from the paper, his expression softening just enough to reveal a trace of human concern. "You may find this arrangement difficult, but I suggest you keep your head down. The Wards do not tolerate mistakes." He handed her the folder. The paper inside was crisp, expensive, untouched by hesitation. After he left, Lila wandered through the mansion. Every step echoed. She passed a library bigger than her entire apartment, a dining room with crystal glasses that would never be used, and a piano coated in dust. The emptiness pressed against her chest until she could hardly breathe. In the afternoon, she visited Ethan's private suite. The medical staff nodded politely, but said nothing as she entered. The machines still hummed the same steady rhythm. His face looked unchanged, calm, untouchable. She placed a small vase of white lilies beside his bed. "They said you liked these," she whispered, remembering an article she had once read about his charity events. "It feels strange to talk to someone who cannot answer." The room stayed still except for the quiet beep of the monitor. She sat down, folded her hands, and exhaled slowly. "I do not belong here," she confessed softly. "But I promise, I will not let them turn this into a lie." Outside, the sky turned amber. Through the window, she could see the long stretch of the Ward estate fading into shadow. Later that evening, her mother called. The voice on the phone was brittle, almost shaking with excitement. "Lila, the money cleared. The debt collectors backed off. You did it, sweetheart. You saved us." Lila's fingers tightened on the phone. Her throat felt dry. "It was not me," she said. "It was him." Her mother hesitated, then lowered her voice. "Do not get attached, Lila. When this is over, walk away clean. That man's world will crush you." The call ended, leaving only the faint hum of the machines and the distant rumble of thunder rolling across the hills. Lila turned toward Ethan once more. "They all think this is just a contract," she murmured. "But I think something about this matters." She brushed a strand of hair from her face and leaned closer. For a second, she thought she saw a flicker beneath his eyelids again, so faint she almost doubted herself. The monitor beeped once, slightly faster than before. Her heart skipped a beat. "Ethan?" she whispered. Nothing, only the sound of rain returning against the glass. But as she left the room, the monitor kept that faint, restless rhythm, almost as if it was beginning to remember her voice. Days turned into weeks, and the Ward mansion settled into its strange rhythm. Every morning, Lila walked down the long hallway toward Ethan's private suite, carrying a small notebook and a vase of fresh flowers. The nurses had stopped questioning her visits. To them, she was the quiet young wife who never asked for anything, who sat by her husband's bedside and whispered things only the machines could hear. One evening, while replacing the wilted lilies, she found a folded document left on the bedside table. It bore the Ward family crest. Her stomach tightened as she opened it. It was the official prenuptial agreement, the one she had been forced to sign before the ceremony. Her name, Lila Grant Ward, was typed neatly beneath the clauses. Her eyes moved over the lines again. No inheritance, no decision-making power, and immediate annulment if Ethan regained consciousness and chose to void the marriage. At the bottom, however, she noticed something else, an additional clause written in smaller text. It had not been there before. In the event that Ethan Ward remains incapacitated for more than 6 months, guardianship of his personal welfare will pass to his legal spouse. She stared at the words, realization creeping in. Someone had changed the contract. That was why her mother had been so desperate. That was why Mr. Hale's tone had carried that hidden warning. This was not just about money, it was about control. Lila folded the paper and tucked it back where she found it. Her hands were cold. "What have they done to you, Ethan?" she whispered. That night, she dreamed of the accident she had only heard about in Whisper's headlights on a wet road, the screech of tires, glass exploding in a burst of white light. She woke with her heart pounding, unsure why her mind conjured images she had never seen. The next morning, she found Mr. Hale waiting for her in the sunroom. He looked tired, his usual polish replaced by a hint of unease. "Mrs. Ward," he began carefully, "the board is concerned about public speculation. There will be a charity event next week, and your presence is required." She frowned. "You mean to parade a comatose man's wife for cameras?" His jaw tightened. "Public confidence affects stock value. Appearances matter." Lila swallowed her anger. "Fine," she said. "I will go." After he left, she went back to Ethan's room. She sat beside him, studying his face, the faint shadow of stubble on his jaw. "They think you are just a name, a brand," she said quietly. "But I know there is more to you than that." Her voice softened. "I do not even know why I care." The afternoon sun spilled across the room, warming the sheets. As she adjusted his pillow, her fingertips brushed his hand. His skin was warm, warmer than usual. Startled, she leaned closer, watching the monitor. The steady beeping had changed. It was faster, uneven. "Ethan," she whispered, "can you hear me?" The faintest twitch crossed his fingers. Her breath caught. "It is me, Lila," she said quickly, afraid the sound might vanish if she stopped speaking. "You are safe. You are home." The monitor beeped again, steadier now, as if responding to her words. A nurse rushed in, startled by the change. "His vitals just spiked," she said, adjusting the controls. "Has he moved?" Lila shook her head quickly. "No. Maybe the light, or maybe he felt something." "La." After the nurse left, Lila remained beside him, unable to tear her gaze away. The silence in the room felt different now, alive, almost expectant. "You are coming back, aren't you?" she murmured. "Please, if you can hear me, come back." For a moment, nothing happened. Then, from somewhere deep in the machine's hum, came a slow inhale that was not mechanical. Lila froze. The sound faded as quickly as it came. Still, she smiled through the tears forming in her eyes. "You heard me," she whispered. "I know you did." The following week arrived with a flurry of preparations. The Ward mansion buzzed with staff, decorators, and photographers. The charity gala that Mr. Hale had mentioned was more than an event. It was a public test of the Ward family's image. The world would see the young Mrs. Ward for the first time, and Lila understood what was at stake. On the afternoon of the event, a team of stylists arrived. They draped her in a pale silver gown that shimmered under the light, its neckline modest but elegant. The makeup artist worked in silence, layering foundation over the faint circles beneath her eyes. When they finished, Lila hardly recognized herself in the mirror. The girl who had walked into the hospital weeks ago, trembling and uncertain, had vanished. In her place stood a woman sculpted for display, composed, graceful, and alone. As the black car carried her toward the downtown ballroom, she kept glancing at the small silver necklace hidden under the fabric of her gown. It was the only thing that still felt real. The ballroom doors opened to a burst of light and chatter. Flashbulbs flickered like tiny lightning strikes. Mr. Hale guided her through the crowd with a polite hand at her elbow, his voice low. "Smile. Do not answer personal questions. The family is watching." Zerial. Reporters called out her name, their questions sharp and rapid. "Mrs. Ward, how is your husband's condition? Do you believe in miracles? Is it true the marriage was arranged?" Lila paused, steadying her breath. Then she lifted her chin and said softly, "I believe in hope, and I believe that love, in any form, deserves respect." The crowd hushed for a moment. Cameras clicked, but no one asked another question. Mr. Hale looked at her with something almost like admiration before steering her toward the stage. As the speeches began, Lila drifted to the edge of the crowd, watching faces blur under the chandeliers. She thought about Ethan lying in his hospital room, unaware of all this noise made in his name. Every laugh and every toast felt hollow. A young volunteer carrying a tray of champagne glasses accidentally tripped near her. Without thinking, Lila caught the tray before it hit the floor, saving the crystal from shattering. The girl gasped. "Oh my gosh! Thank you, Mrs. Ward." Lila smiled gently. "Be careful. These things cost more than they should." The girl laughed nervously and hurried off. Mr. Hale had seen the moment from across the room and approached her afterward. "That was quick thinking," he said. "You handled yourself well tonight. The board will be pleased." I did not do it for them," she replied quietly. "I did it because someone should." Later that night, back at the mansion, Lila removed her gown and makeup, feeling the weight of the evening fade with each layer she shed. She walked barefoot through the dark hallway toward Ethan's suite. The hum of machines greeted her like the rhythm of a heartbeat. She sat beside him and took his hand. "I went to their party," she said softly. "Everyone smiled for the cameras. They called me your wife, and for a moment, I almost believed it." Her thumb brushed over his knuckles. "Do you remember anything, Ethan? Do you remember me?" The room remained silent except for the quiet, constant beeping. She sighed, resting her forehead against his arm. "You saved my family without even knowing it. The least I can do is be here when you wake up." For a long while she stayed like that, eyes closed, listening to the steady rhythm of the machines. Then, faintly, she felt the softest pressure against her hand like a weak attempt to return the touch. Her breath caught. She looked up, but his face was still. The monitors showed only a slight rise in his pulse. She smiled through a tear. "You are trying, aren't you?" she whispered. "Do not stop." Outside, the first snow of the season began to fall, brushing against the window like a promise she could almost believe. Winter deepened around the Ward mansion. The snow that once looked beautiful now piled high along the driveway like quiet walls. The days bled together in shades of gray and silver. But for Lila, something inside had begun to change. Each morning she woke with a reason to sit by Ethan's side, to read to him, to talk even when he could not answer. What had started as duty was becoming something else, something she could not name. One morning, she arrived to find the medical team gathered around his bed. The machines buzzed louder than usual. "His brain activity is increasing," the doctor said, not noticing her at first. "It is irregular, but this is progress." When the room cleared, Lila moved closer, her heart racing. "You hear that, Ethan? You are fighting your way back." She smiled faintly, brushing his hand. "I knew you would." She began reading aloud from a book she found in the library, Ethan's favorite author, according to an old interview. Her voice filled the room with warmth, steady and calm. For a moment, it almost felt like he was listening. Days later, Mr. Hale arrived unexpectedly. His usual formality seemed sharper, colder. He stood by the window, his reflection dark against the snow. "The board appreciates your presence at the gala," he began. "But there is another matter. The press wants a statement about Mr. Ward's recovery. They want you to speak again." Lila frowned. "Why me? You have doctors, lawyers, spokespeople." "Because you are his wife," he said simply. "You are the image they want to see, and we need stability right now." Her voice tightened. "You mean you need control?" Mr. Hale turned toward her, his expression unreadable. "You may not realize it, Mrs. Ward, but you hold a position that others would destroy you to take. Be careful who you trust." He left without another word. The warning lingered like frost in her chest. That night, she visited Ethan's room again. The storm outside had grown fierce. Lightning flashed beyond the window, cutting through the darkness. She stood beside his bed, her voice trembling. "They think I am here for their benefit, for their money, but the truth is, I cannot leave, not anymore." She reached out, touching his wrist gently. "You do not know me, Ethan, but I was there the night of the accident. You never saw my face, but I pulled you from the car before it exploded." Her breath caught as she spoke the secret she had kept for months. "I never told anyone. If I had not stopped that night, you would not be here." The room fell silent again, except for the rain. For the first time, she felt lighter, as if the weight of the lie had lifted from her chest. "That is why I agreed to this marriage," she whispered. Because I owed you. And maybe because a part of me wanted to see you open your eyes again. Just then, a sound escaped him, soft, broken, but unmistakable. A sigh. Lila froze, leaning closer. Ethan? His fingers twitched again, stronger this time. The monitor beeped faster, the rhythm climbing like a heartbeat finding its way back. Nurses rushed in, startled by the sudden change. The doctor followed, checking the readings. He is responding, she said in disbelief. It is minimal, but he is trying to wake up. Lila stood back, tears streaming down her face. The world around her blurred, the nurses, the machines, the noise, all fading into one truth she could finally believe. He heard her. He was coming back. Outside, the storm began to quiet. Snow still fell, but now it looked softer, brighter, like the world was holding its breath for the moment that would change everything. The news spread through the Ward estate like fire through dry leaves. Ethan Ward had shown signs of consciousness. Within hours, the mansion filled with people again. Doctors, family members, reporters at the gate. The air hummed with nervous energy. But for Lila, everything slowed to a fragile quiet. When she entered his room that morning, sunlight streamed through the tall windows, painting gold across the sheets. Ethan's eyes were still closed, but his breathing was stronger now, more human than mechanical. The doctor turned to her with a measured smile. We are seeing remarkable improvement. If this continues, he could regain full consciousness soon. Lila pressed a hand to her chest. Can I stay with him? The doctor nodded. He responds best to your voice. Keep talking. It seems to calm him. She sat beside him, fingers trembling as they brushed over his hand. Do you know how long I have been waiting for this? She whispered. You once gave everything to save your company, your family name. Now, it is my turn to wait for you. Oh. Her words hung softly in the air, carried by the faint rhythm of the heart monitor. She read to him again, the same book she had begun before, pausing after each chapter to watch for the smallest change. Every breath he took felt like a miracle. Days passed, and his condition improved little by little. He was not awake yet, but his reactions were clear, fingers twitching at the sound of her voice, faint movements under closed eyelids when she laughed, and once, the ghost of a smile that nearly broke her heart. Then one morning, as snow melted outside, Ethan's eyelids fluttered open. His gaze, hazy at first, darted around the room. The doctor leaned forward. Mr. Ward, can you hear me? He blinked slowly, lips parting, as if forming a word. His voice came out rough, unfamiliar from months of silence. Where am I? The doctor smiled gently. You are in your home, Mr. Ward. You were in an accident, but you are safe now. Ethan's eyes shifted, landing on Lila. He studied her face for a long moment. You, his voice broke. I know you. Lila froze. You know me? His brow furrowed. You were there, the night of the crash. Her breath hitched, he remembered. Tears welled in her eyes, and she nodded slowly. Yes, Ethan, I was there. The doctor interrupted softly. Mr. Ward, you need rest. We can continue this later. But Ethan did not look away. His voice, though weak, carried certainty. You pulled me out. I remember your voice. After the staff left the room, Lila stayed by his side, unable to speak. He turned his head toward her again, struggling to focus. Why did you not tell me? She hesitated, words trembling. Because they would have taken everything from you. From me. They said the marriage had to happen, that it was the only way to protect the company, to protect my family. He studied her for a moment, then smiled faintly. You saved my life, and then agreed to marry me to save theirs. That is not something I forget easily. Lila's throat tightened. You do not owe me anything. When you are strong again, you can end this. I will not stop you. Ethan's eyes softened. End it? After everything you have done? No, Lila. I think this is where things begin. No. She blinked, unsure if she heard him right. But he was already slipping back into sleep, exhaustion claiming him again. Still, his hand remained in hers, warm and alive. For the first time since the day she signed that cursed contract, Lila dared to hope not for freedom, but for something far more dangerous. She hoped for love. Ethan's recovery became the only topic the Ward family wanted to discuss, but not for reasons of love or gratitude. For them, it was business, reputation, and control. The moment he opened his eyes, everything changed. The doctors moved him from his private suite to a sunlit room overlooking the garden, and the press began circling like hungry birds outside the gates. Lila felt the shift the instant she walked into the mansion that morning. The quiet she had known was gone, replaced by polished smiles and polite manipulation. Mr. Hale waited for her at the top of the stairs, his expression unreadable. "Mrs. Ward," he said smoothly, "Mr. Ethan is awake and asking questions. The family will meet with him this afternoon. You are not required to attend." Her brow furrowed. "He asked for me." "That may be," Hale replied, "but the family believes your presence might complicate things. It would be best to let them handle his reintegration." Lila stared at him for a long moment. "You mean you want to control what he remembers?" Hale did not deny it. "Ethan is the face of Ward Enterprises. His memory may be incomplete. The board will guide what he learns, for the company's stability." She wanted to shout, but she knew better. Instead, she turned away and walked down the hall toward Ethan's room. The guards at the door stepped aside reluctantly. When she entered, Ethan was sitting upright for the first time, pale but alert. His eyes lit up at the sight of her. Lila. Her name and his voice felt like sunlight after months of winter. She smiled, stepping closer. "You should not be sitting up yet." He shrugged weakly. "I am tired of lying down. Besides, I needed to see you. They keep telling me stories about my accident, about the company, about this marriage. But I want to hear it from you." Lila hesitated. She could see the sincerity in his eyes, but also confusion, a man surrounded by people who wanted to rewrite his past. "You already know the truth," she said quietly. "The night of the crash I found you. I called for help. After that, everything spun out of control." He nodded slowly, the memory still foggy. "And this marriage?" She swallowed. "A contract, to protect both families. I signed because they threatened mine." Ethan's jaw tightened. "And you stayed. Even when I was nothing but a body in a bed. Why?" Her voice broke. "Because I owed you. Because I could not walk away knowing you might die alone." He reached for her hand. "Then I owe you my life twice." "No." Before she could respond, the door opened sharply. Ethan's mother stepped in, elegant and cold. "That will be enough, Mrs. Ward. My son needs rest." Lila straightened, but Ethan's hand tightened around hers. "Mother," he said firmly, "I want her here." His mother's smile did not reach her eyes. "You have been asleep for months, darling. You do not know what this girl has done." Lila felt the accusation like a blade but said nothing. Ethan's gaze hardened. "I know exactly what she has done. She saved me." The older woman's expression flickered, but she recovered quickly. "We will discuss this later." She turned and left, her heels echoing down the hallway. When the door closed, silence returned. Ethan looked at Lila again, his voice low. "They are hiding something. I can feel it." Lila nodded. "I think they added a clause to the contract. One that gives them power over you if you do not remember everything." His eyes darkened with resolve. "Then we will find out what they changed." For the first time, Lila saw the man behind the legend, the sharp mind, the quiet strength that had built an empire. He looked at her, a faint smile touching his lips. "Whatever happens next," he said, "I am not letting them take you away from me." And though she tried to steady herself, her heart betrayed her, beating faster than the monitor beside his bed. The following days felt like walking through a storm that refused to end. Ethan grew stronger each day, his memory returning piece by piece. He began sitting through company briefings, reviewing documents, and speaking to investors again. The Ward family celebrated his recovery in public, but behind closed doors, tension coiled like wire, ready to snap. Lila sensed the danger long before it arrived. Conversations would stop when she entered the room. Staff who once greeted her now looked away. Even Mr. Hale, once her reluctant ally, had grown distant. Something was shifting, and she could feel it coming for her. One morning, Ethan summoned her to his study. He was standing near the window, his posture still frail, but his voice firm. "Lila," he said, "I need to know everything, every part of what they made you sign." She hesitated, then handed him the copy of the contract she had hidden for weeks. He read in silence, his expression hardening with each page. When he reached the final clause, the one that transferred his guardianship after 6 months, he slammed the folder shut. "They used you," he said. "They used both of us." "I know," she whispered. "Your mother and the board changed the terms after I signed. They wanted control over your assets if you never woke up." Ethan's eyes darkened. And Hale knew? She nodded. He warned me, in his own way, but he is loyal to them, not us. For a long moment, Ethan said nothing. Then he turned toward her, his expression softening. Lila, I owe you more than I can ever repay, but I cannot let them ruin you for saving me. Before she could respond, the door burst open. Mr. Hale stood there, flanked by 2 security officers. His tone was cold, rehearsed. Mrs. Ward, you need to come with us. The family has decided to dissolve your marriage, effective immediately. Ethan's jaw clenched. You will do no such thing. Sir, Hale said. Your mother has the legal authority. The annulment has already been filed. Lila froze, her heart pounding. What? Hale avoided her eyes. You should not have interfered in company affairs. You violated the confidentiality clause. Ethan took a step forward, his voice steady despite the anger beneath it. I am the head of Ward Enterprises. No decision stands without my consent. Not while your medical evaluation is pending, Hale replied smoothly. The board questions your mental stability after the coma. The words hit like ice water. Ethan's control cracked for the first time. Get out, he growled. Hale signaled to the guards, but Ethan's tone turned sharper, colder, the tone of a man who had built an empire. You touch her, and I will have every one of you escorted out by morning. The guards hesitated, then stepped back. Hale's jaw tightened. You are making a mistake. Maybe, Ethan said, but it is mine to make. When the door shut behind them, the room fell silent again. Lila stood frozen, trembling. They will come after us harder now, she said. Ethan turned to her, his gaze unwavering. Then we fight back, but first we show them the truth. He walked to his desk and opened a hidden compartment beneath the drawer. Inside was a small flash drive sealed in glass. Before the accident, he said quietly, I was investigating irregular transfers in the company. The night I crashed, I was on my way to confront them. Lila's eyes widened. You think someone tried to… Yes, he said, his voice cold. I think it was not an accident. She stared at him, realization dawning like light breaking through a storm. Your mother, she whispered. Ethan nodded slowly. And this time, Lila, I am not going to be silent. Outside, thunder rolled again, echoing across the valley. But inside the mansion, for the first time, Ethan's eyes were clear, steady, and alive with purpose. The fight for truth had just begun. The next morning dawned clear after a night of thunder. The storm had finally broken, but inside the Ward mansion, tension still clung to the air. Ethan sat in his study, the same flash drive resting on the desk between him and Lila. His expression was calm, too calm for a man who had just declared war on his own family. This, he said quietly, contains the proof, the transfers, the falsified contracts, the emails that link them to the crash. No. Lila stared at the small piece of glass and metal. You kept this all along? I planned to reveal it before the accident, he said. But I never made it to that meeting. Now, it is time. He picked up the phone and called the board. Within hours, the grand conference room filled with faces that once smiled at him but now avoided his eyes. Mr. Hale sat near the end of the table, his expression tight. Ethan placed the flash drive in the center. Before we begin, Ethan said, I want to make something very clear. The investigation into Ward Enterprises will go public today. You can either stand beside me and save this company or try to bury me again. His mother's voice broke the silence, smooth but trembling. Ethan, you do not understand what you are doing. I understand perfectly, he replied. You changed my contracts, you stole from the trust, and you nearly destroyed the only person who stood by me when all of you were counting your profits. He gestured toward Lila, who stood quietly near the door. She saved my life twice, first from the wreck and then from all of you. The words struck the room like a hammer. Hale's face drained of color. You have no proof. Ethan pressed a button on the remote. The screen behind him lit up with transaction records and video evidence. Hale's voice echoed through the speakers, captured from a recorded call. If the boy does not wake up, the company is ours. The room fell dead silent. Security entered moments later, escorting Hale and 2 board members out. Ethan's mother stood frozen, her expression collapsing into disbelief. Ethan, you cannot mean to expose your own family. He met her gaze, steady and unflinching. Family should mean loyalty, not control. You taught me that the wrong way. No? She said nothing as the guards led her out. When the last door closed, Ethan exhaled, the weight of years lifting from his shoulders. He turned to Lila. It is over. She shook her head gently. No, Ethan. It is beginning again, clean this time. Weeks later, the Ward mansion no longer felt cold. Reporters called it a miracle. The billionaire who woke from a coma to expose corruption and start over. But behind every headline was the truth only two people knew how it all began, with a lie and turned into something real. One evening, Ethan found Lila in the garden, trimming the winter roses that had somehow survived the frost. He walked up behind her, holding a small velvet box. You once said you only signed because you owed me, he said softly. Now I am asking you to stay because I owe you my heart. She looked up at him, tears catching the sunlight. No contracts this time? He smiled. Only promises. He opened the box, revealing a simple ring that gleamed like morning light. Lila Grant Ward, he said, his voice steady. Will you marry me truly, this time? She nodded, her voice breaking with emotion. Yes, Ethan, 1,000 times yes. As he slid the ring onto her finger, the garden filled with the sound of wind through the roses. The mansion that once echoed with silence now felt alive again. For the first time, there were no signatures, no lies, no secrets, only two people who had survived everything the world could throw at them. And somewhere in the distance, the last traces of winter melted away, leaving behind the quiet, golden promise of spring.